This was really brutal and violent and shocking.
Whoever's responsible needs to pay for it.
If you know something, say something.
Criminals almost always make a mistake.
Some killings go unsolved. Time passes, but families never forget, and detectives never give up. WHIO-TV presents Miami Valley Murder Mysteries.
Good evening, I'm Cheryl McHenry.
And I'm James Brown. Tonight we investigate 4 cold cases of murder right here in our area.
Caitlin Markham would have turned 26 last month. She might be thriving in her art career and even married by now.
But 4 years ago, the nightmare began, which ended all of her future plans. As John Bedell explains, Caitlin's murder is still a mystery.
As a parent, you want to comfort your children. You want to, put your arms around, keep them warm. And that was a long time. I couldn't do that.
For almost 2 years, David Markham endured the agony of searching for his missing daughter, Caitlin. It ended along a country road 30 miles from her home.
It was nice to bring her home. There wasn't much left of her, but it was nice to get her out of that dump, get her out of the weather.
It was painful proof of her death.
So that was a good day.
The day he was finally able to lay Caitlin to rest.
I'm sorry.
After hundreds spent months meticulously searching, one man walking through the woods looking for quick cash closed one chapter of this story, but opened another. Who did this to Caitlin, and why?
4 years have gone by without anybody fessing up or turning somebody else in or speaking the truth.
A woman still haunted by her role in the discovery.
You see those things in movies, you don't expect to see them in real life. And it really kind of drove home to me that, there are monsters out there and things that go bump in the night.
2 police agencies and a private investigator.
I'll never forget this case, ever.
All working together for a family living with years of uncertainty.
Caitlin needs justice, and this needs to end.
To understand how all these people became linked, we have to go back to Caitlin's Fairfield apartment, August 2011. She was 22, engaged, and just days away from earning a graphic design degree.
She had a very creative mind, and she wanted to make money off of doing something she loved. She would have been good at it.
But those dreams were never realized. This was one of the last places Caitlin was seen alive.
She had some friends over for the evening, and they all departed. And I believe it was around 11 o'clock at night that we'd last seen her.
Fairfield police got involved the next day when Caitlin didn't show up for work and she was reported missing.
The apartment showed no signs of violence or anything like that. It was just as if she had departed of her own volition.
But Caitlin's purse, keys, her dog, and her car were all still there. The only thing missing was her cell phone. As hundreds searched for Caitlin, her case garnered national attention. What did you think at the outset?
At the very beginning, I feared the worst. And as the days got longer into it, it was apparent to me that it was going to be a recovery, that she wasn't going to walk in the house.
The search for Caitlin lasted 20 months. It ended here in Cedar Grove, Indiana, along this creek bed. It was a Sunday afternoon in April 2013, and a man scrapping for metal in these woods made a gruesome discovery. Just days later, Indiana State Police confirmed it was Caitlin.
The majority of what was found was just skeletal remains. They had been placed in a way to be concealed.
Investigators could not determine how Caitlin died.
Heartless. I mean, it's just like a piece of garbage. That's what pisses me off, that they treated her like a piece of garbage.
It was my mom's property at that time.
Cheryl Ty called 911 after that scrapper showed her what he found.
Franklin County Sheriff's Department.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Ty. I'm at my mom's.
I immediately said, stop. Don't touch anything else. Get out of there because it'll be a crime scene. I really think that whoever dumped this knew exactly what they were doing and knew about this site.
How solvable is this?
Well, I've always said we are right there on it, but I do believe that individuals close to Caitlin Markham have answers that they are not revealing right now.
A former law enforcement detective based in Florida, J. Ryan Green, is a private investigator working the case.
The piece has been taken from David Markham. That piece will always be gone, but to give David Markham a little bit of his life back, knowing what happened to Caitlin, who was involved, and why, is why I'm doing this now.
All answers Green hopes to give a man he now considers a friend to solve the mystery of what happened to Caitlin.
She'll have her justice someday. I do believe that. I do believe someday her case will be solved. There will be answers.
If you have information about the death of Caitlin Markham, call Fairfield Police at 513-829-8201 or Private Detective J. Ryan Green at 941-565-7661.
When a 17-year-old girl goes missing, police assume she's a runaway.
We knew right from the beginning, and that's what upset my mom so much, was because we knew something was wrong.
Something was dead wrong. A murder mystery from 1975 when we return. At the end of her shift, 17-year-old Judy Kanter slipped her Trotwood Madison High School jacket over her waitress uniform to walk home, but she never made it. Becky Grimes tells us about a long-ago murder that is now back in the spotlight.
Riders on the storm. Vietnam, Watergate, bell-bottoms and shaggy hair, the evolving music scene. You could call the 70s a tumultuous time. It was also a time of innocence, when funny sitcoms were on TV, and kids could roam the streets with their friends without fear.
We had it made. Those were the days.
That's until something sinister happened to this teenager just after Thanksgiving 1975. A man looking for scrap metal in the ruins of an old country club made the discovery. There, among the rubble, the body of Judy Kanter in a closet-like area of a burned-out building, nude except for a jacket and shoes, dead from a shotgun blast.
Could have been anyone. Anybody you talked to that may have known her or hung out with her could be a potential suspect.
Evidence is being analyzed.
There's been improvements to DNA testing, so I resubmitted evidence.
To at long last nail Judy's killer.
Seemed like a normal teenager that something very bad happened to.
The 17-year-old lived here with her mom, stepdad, and two siblings on West Anna Drive in what was then Madison Township. Pretty and outgoing, she loved drama and art at Trotwood Madison High School. Judy graduated 1 year early with her sister Marilyn.
I just always wonder what she would have been like now.
Marilyn lives out of state now, so we talked about her sister on FaceTime.
It's just full of life. She really was. I mean, she was somebody that I looked up to because she was so looking forward to everything upcoming.
That future Judy was planning included boyfriend Ron Hobbs. Julie Dalton knew both of them back then, but felt closer to Judy.
She was such a nice, sweet girl, and she was a lot like me at that time because we were both trying to grow up. We're working. I was going to school. I think she was planning on going to school.
To make money for college, Judy worked here at what was a Bill Knapp's on Shiloh Springs. Her boyfriend usually drove her home, but that night, November 15th, 1975, he called to say he wouldn't be able to pick her up. So Judy decided to walk home. She stopped here, once a mini market, to buy gum. Then Judy disappeared. Her worried mother filed a missing person report the next morning.
We had a bad feeling right from the beginning because that was not like my sister. She would not leave her things. She didn't have anything with her, and she didn't like being in her uniform any longer than she had to.
This is the Bill Knapp's waitress uniform Judy was wearing, found neatly folded near her body. Not a dirt mark or blood stain on it. You can see by this police map where these tragic events happened, right in the very neighborhood where Judy lived and worked.
Mom never got over it, and neither did my stepfather.
And what about the boyfriend, Ron Hobbs?
He says that there isn't a day it goes by it he doesn't think about it still.
Marilyn isn't surprised.
I can believe that. So that's No, I know it was hard on him. You know, we stayed in touch for a long time after her death.
Detectives know the motive,
There was definitely some evidence leading towards a sexual assault.
and they know the first shot tore through Judy's Trotwood Madison High School jacket and into her shoulder as she ran.
It looks as if she was at first trying to run from somebody, trying to hide, and somebody found her.
Somebody then shot her in the head as she sat in her hiding place in the ruins of the Plantation Club.
Deep down, I've always felt it was somebody that we both knew.
Somebody who maybe offered her a ride.
I feel that, I don't know why I'm alive and she was, the one dead.
The one buried at Beth Jacobs Cemetery on a cold and windy day, very unlike this one. Here you find more stones on graves than flowers. In Jewish tradition, an altar is no more than a pile of stones, and it's on an altar that one offers to God. Detective Steele is praying somebody who knows something will finally come forward.
Whoever's responsible needs to pay for it.
Because Judy Kanter will not be forgotten.
Detective Walt Steele wants to hear from anyone with information about the Judy Kanter homicide. Call him at 937-496-7768 and chat live with Detective Steele right now on WHIO.com.
My dad won't get to walk me down the aisle, or my sisters.
She was only 6 years old when her dad disappeared. She and her siblings just want to find out who killed him and why. Family and friends say Emmett Watts III was always smiling. He had lots of friends, no real enemies. But somebody killed him, then dumped his body along a tree-lined road. Now, almost 27 years later, there are people who believe others out there can still help solve this case.
From his earliest years in life,
Always laughing,
Emmett Watts could light up a room with a smile.
always dancing.
He wanted to be friends with everyone.
He was just a great guy.
He loved life, he loved his family, and he loved this city. As a matter of fact, he worked here more than 20 years at what used to be a General Motors plant in Dayton.
He made me very happy.
She loved her dad.
I was a daddy's girl.
In 1988, Kelly Watts was 6 years old, her sister just 9 months. They were the youngest of his 5 children.
On November 3rd of that year, their father just disappeared. A few days later, police found Emmett's abandoned rental car in this alley off of North William Street in Dayton. Then about 2 weeks after that, and just 2 miles away,
we found the body 2 weeks later by some guys that were walking, picking up cans.
Investigators think somebody killed Watts someplace else, then dumped his body just 8 feet off of West River Road.
Multiple violent injuries is how he died. I mean, he didn't die right away.
No, he did not die right away.
But Detective Tackett would not go as far as saying the killer tortured Watts.
Sometimes they don't necessarily want the person dead. They want to know where's the money, where's the drugs, where can I get it, and to get information from them.
So what was the motive? Investigators found out that Watts liked to spend lots of money. His family figured that out as well, but they had no idea where it was going.
But this woman did.
Well, I miss him. He was a very dear friend.
She was one of several women Watts was involved with before he died.
Do you think drugs had something to do with him being killed?
Yes. I mean, I hate to say it, but absolutely.
She said Watts always carried a large duffel bag with drugs inside. And while he never talked about dealing drugs, she considered him a significant player.
Kelly's mom told him the marriage was over and he had to move out of their home here on Bromwick Drive in Trotwood. But he moved just around the corner so he could see his 2 youngest daughters almost every day.
Was there a suspect? I mean, was there any hard, fast evidence that they focused on one person or people?
No, there was not one focus whatsoever.
Investigators talked with lots of people about this case initially in 1988, but felt some of those people were not as forthcoming with information as they could have been. Through our own investigation, I tracked down one of Mr. Watts' former co-workers, and during our conversation, I felt the same way. Investigators and family members frustrated not only then but today about this happening. They're just now hoping after all these years, people who know something about this case will finally do the right thing.
People are in different circumstances in their life now. This happened quite some time ago. So there's a lot of people that might say, heck, I'm off the streets now. I'm not going to be a target. Might as well come through.
That will take courage, just like the courage it took for Kelly to come here to West River Road and talk about her dad. This was the first time she'd ever been here, standing just feet from where his body wound up.
He was out in this space for a long time. I hate that someone thought so little of him that this is where he ended up.
There are some who would say if Watts was involved in drugs, he got what was coming to him.
My dad made some mistakes, but those mistakes shouldn't mean that that my siblings and I had to grow up without a father. It doesn't mean that he should have never been able to meet his grandchildren.
This old home video is all Watts' younger daughter Casey has of him. Casey is now 27 years old. A few months ago, Casey sent this email to the State Bureau of Investigation asking BCI to help find her father's killer. She wonders if when somebody looks at her strange, is that her father's killer? Casey went on to say, "This has haunted me most of my life."
Yeah, it's unfair, but life's unfair.
Today, Watts' children are all grown, and some have kids of their own. They are no longer angry, more sad than anything, knowing their kids will never know their grandfather.
I miss you, and I love you. You've missed out on a lot, but we're doing our best to make you proud.
If you know anything about the murder of Emmett Watts III, give Detective Patricia Tackett a call at 937-333-1149. And right now, you can chat live with her on WHIO.com.
The daughter of a prominent Daytonian is bludgeoned to death in her cabin retreat.
This was really brutal and violent and shocking.
And still unsolved Miami Valley murder mysteries will be back in 2 minutes. Martha Ullman was a gentle, nature-loving soul from a well-known family. No one who knew Martha would ever expected her life to end so violently. And those who loved her are still holding out hope investigators can find the killer. Martha Ullman was born of a prominent Dayton family, the youngest of Robert and Mary Ullman's 4 children. Her father was the CEO of NCR and a key founder of Wright State University. Brad was Martha's big brother.
She was 11 years younger than I was, so in a sense, I was her protector.
Martha grew up a protector of nature. At 47, she was living alone in Sugar Creek Township in a small cabin her family had used as a hunting lodge. From here, Martha worked in the field of homeopathy and couldn't bring herself to harm a single living thing.
Living in the middle of the woods, there's a lot of bugs in the house. Well, she would scoop them out gently and throw them outside and not kill them.
Susan Zerker planned to go canoeing with her friend that first weekend in September 1997, but couldn't get hold of Martha.
I thought, well, this is odd. It was odd that I'm not getting an answer, but, I couldn't understand why she wasn't calling back.
Martha had also missed a business appointment in Columbus that Saturday. Concerned friends went to the cabin the next day.
Please hurry. 2980 Upper Bellbrook Road. I think she's dead.
Blunt force trauma to the back of the head. No murder weapon was ever recovered.
Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine says Martha was nude, lying face down on her bed, no evidence of sexual assault. Brad Ullman lived out of state and got a devastating middle-of-the-night call from the Greene County coroner.
Murder, it was a heinous crime committed against an individual who had Gentle as her middle name.
Brad had just seen his sister during a family vacation on Cape Cod. Here she is, just weeks before her death, with their sister Kathy. Martha might have stayed longer, but filmmaker Julia Reichert was gearing up for her latest project and needed an assistant.
She was very smart, she was very dedicated, she was very determined. And you could rely on Martha.
Reichert first met Martha Ullman in the mid-'70s in Yellow Springs, where both helped originate the long-running Women in Music show on WYSO. She asked Martha to be one of the singers on her film Union Maids. And for the longest time, Reichert had no idea Martha was from a notable family.
She was humble, she didn't dress fancy at all. Perhaps her lifestyle being a lesbian, perhaps she was a little bit of a hippie, we all kind of were back then.
Over the years, Martha worked on another of Reichert's films, Emma and Elvis, and was just starting work on The Dreamcatcher when the crew got word of her death.
When we found out that she was bludgeoned to death, we just didn't know how, I mean, we were just speechless because it was, Martha. And I have honestly replayed like how she died or imagined 1,000 times in my head.
It was impossible. Just impossible. She didn't have any enemies.
So who then killed Martha and why? Those are the questions Mike DeWine still gets when he comes home to Greene County. Investigators with the State Bureau of Criminal Investigation have compiled nearly a dozen boxes of evidence and interviews with Martha's friends, trying to retrace her final steps.
Martha was last seen 2 days before her body was found. On that last day of her life, she came here to do her laundry, then gassed up her car and headed home.
The cabin wasn't visible from the road. Martha drove the 1/10 of a mile down the lane and parked her black Volvo. Another car might have been waiting there.
She very well may have known the person. She may have recognized the car. When she pulled up there after having, done laundry, bringing that laundry into the house.
DeWine won't talk about possible motive or persons of interest, but he points out forensics have improved in 18 years, and there's another factor that could lead to an arrest.
Criminals make mistakes. Sometimes it's years later. Sometimes it's years later when you get someone who knows something, some fragment, some piece of information, and they come forward.
But if you know something, just say, and let people have a chance to keep digging.
Robert and Mary Ullman lived into their 90s and died not knowing who killed their daughter.
My dad, I don't think ever really recovered from it.
Brad hasn't recovered either.
It's a scar that won't heal. It's a scar that won't heal. We want it to heal. We want justice.
Julia Reichert, too, hopes the killer can be found.
But I believe they're living with a certain kind of horror that they did this. I believe that.
If you have information about the Martha Ullman murder case, detectives at the Bureau of Criminal Investigation want to hear from you. The number to call is 855-BCI-OHIO.
Right now, find out more about these Miami Valley murder mysteries and chat live with Detective Patricia Tackett and Detective Walt Steele on WHIO.com.
If you can shed any light on these cold cases, please make that call.
Thanks for joining us. Good night.